Operation Hands Down. Multiple federal, state, and local agencies, including Bonta's office, worked together for a takedown day of 11 Surenos gang members. The investigation began 2 months ago and culminated Thursday, with 500 law enforcement officers serving more than 40 search warrants throughout the valley. They arrested 69 people, including 5 juveniles.
We've made our streets safer, our neighborhoods safer, our communities safer, not just in Fresno County, but beyond.
The sheriff's office says it captured nearly all of the people they set out to find. Sheriff John Zanoni sharing more about a crime they believed they stopped.
We were able to intercept and get some information regarding a possible school shooting of an individual that had made some threats and was taking a gun to a school.
He says they seized 73 guns.
As you can see, no serial number here. This is another one that we call an AK-47 style rifle. These are weapons of war.
They also found meth, more than $150,000, and 10 grams of fentanyl.
This 10 grams could have been enough to kill 5,000 people.
To Sheriff Zanoni, the operation represents a major...
Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get straight to the intro. Welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure that you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking, and I appreciate the support. I'm very humbled by it. Operation Hands Down, 69 individuals taken off the streets, taken. Good luck. They're gone, right? And it's all because one thing put it in motion. One thing put it in motion, and that was the obvious threat of an individual claiming that they were going to be involved or do a school shooting. That's all it took for law enforcement in conjunction with each other to put together an operation that took down over 69 different individuals from Fresno County. Now, this Operation Hands Down is very simple. They feel that the Surenos and Southside movement that has massively, it's been a massive influx into Fresno County, right? But it's not like Surenos haven't been there in Fresno County, man. There's very well pockets throughout Fresno County of Surenos or Southsiders, right? Places like Sanger, places like Fresno. You know, when you hear Fresno, you automatically think Fresno Bulldogs or even F-14 Norteños. But there has always been a presence of Southsiders in and around Fresno County, and enough was enough. This threat of involving a school was enough for law enforcement to put this operation together and to crack down. In conjunction with each other yesterday, they captured 69 people, most of them targets that they were after. Now, what happens in these big operations? What happens is they cast a wide net. Okay, they're trying to catch everyone that's either associated, involved, family members, so that way someone will crack, someone will break. They obviously have a few targets in mind that they really want to get, but they figure if they capture all these people, men and women, juveniles were even captured in this operation, right? They were the primary focus, actually. At the end of the day, they feel that someone will break, someone will crack, they'll apply pressure, and they'll eventually get the people that they want, the targets. That's usually how it happens, and it goes down. Now, I know Fresno County is a pretty big county, and there's a lot of different cities in Fresno. You got Sanger, which is the primary focus of this investigation. Fresno, Sanger, Orange Cove. You got Pinedale. You got Clovis, right? You got Huron. All these different cities are located in Fresno County. And like I said, there's always been Southsiders around or in the city of Fresno. But now lately, they've been getting deeper and deeper. You know, I've noticed that Surenos and Southsiders are migrating even further up north than ever before. Okay, their numbers are growing, whether it's social media and the influence of social media. That's what these youngsters are seeing, and they're choosing sides. They're either holding it down for the Norteño movement or the Bulldogs, or they're their eyes are being opened to the Southern politics and to the Southern way of moving. Either way, man, being a gang member is being a gang member. It doesn't matter what you claim or what side you represent. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's all a nuisance and a burden to the community. It's not safe, and it doesn't make a safe environment. And so that's what's happening, right? I used to be heavily involved in the gangs, and my agenda all the time was the homies before everything. I didn't see the community around me. All I seen was the homies and what we were doing. I paid no attention to who was behind the curtain. None of that mattered. The only thing that mattered every day, day in and day out, was pushing our agenda, which was to eradicate our opposition and to hold it down for our stronghold, for our lands, our northern lands, is what I felt at the time. But there was always Southerners present, right? If you notice lately with Operation Hands Down and the operation that they just conducted, I believe at MacArthur Park in Southern California, the Southsiders have seemed to be the primary focus on these investigations lately. And it goes in spurts. This is how it goes. They'll focus on the Southerners for a while and hit all their pockets, all their little strongholds, all their little regiments or what they got going on. And then they'll focus on the Norteños or the Blacks or the Woods. And then the ball just keeps on rolling. That's why I say if you're a part of a gang nowadays, best believe you're under a watchful eye. They're investigating your group. If you're getting money, if you're really out there catching bodies and gangbanging like they say in all these rap songs, if you're really doing that, then you're on their radar. You're on their bucket list. And it's only a matter of time before you get caught up. Now, what kicked this investigation into fast forward, they were already watching these guys, I'm sure. But there was a threat made by some school-age youngsters that were involved in the gang, allegedly, right? And one of them threatened another gang member at a school and claimed he was going to go to the school with the firearm and do his thing, right? Now, in this day and age, you can't do that. That's not taken lightly. Taking guns to school or making these types of threats, I'm sure this individual that was threatened told probably his parents or another adult, and they, got a hold of law enforcement, and law enforcement took it serious, and they seen that as an opportunity to get all resources to go after these guys. Now, there was a lot of drugs, a lot of guns, a lot of money involved, and that happens in every takedown, every operation. Everything that's grabbed, they're going to say was contributed or attributed to the benefit of a gang. So that's all going to be seized, right? Yes, it got drugs off the streets, which prevents people from using them, but the beat's going to go on. Someone else is going to step right up and do it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that them drugs or them guns were tied to these exact crimes that are alleged to have been committed. But at the end of the day, anytime they take drugs or guns off the street, that's like a win for law enforcement. That proves exactly what they set out to do. Now, they did prevent this shooting at this school, which is a great thing, man, because I'm sure there's a lot of kids there going to the school that were not involved in gangs, that had nothing to do with this. And, in the gang lifestyle, I remember back in the days, when innocent bystanders got hit or got caught up in situations, it was called casualties of war. Happened all the time, right? And as far as, things happening at school, well, usually gangsters, gang members start participating around middle school, high school age. That's when you're really not in your prime yet, but you're really getting ingrained or getting indoctrinated and educated into the gang lifestyle. So it's a serious threat if someone's taking a gun to a school or threatening another gang member. It's more than likely going to happen. It's going to pop off. You see movies like American History X where, they're the white guy and the youngster in the movie, gets into it with the brothers, man, at the school, and then it escalates into an off-campus shooting. Anything can happen. So law enforcement will definitely take these threats serious. Now, what that does is it shuts down a lot of the operations and kills the hierarchy out there in Fresno County as far as the Southsiders. But that doesn't mean shit's done. That doesn't mean other members aren't in place to take the reins, right? That's usually how it goes. You cut the head off the snake grows one back quick. This takedown was focused on a prison gang organization, right? A group that I believe, and I know others believe, has been functioning in Fresno County for decades. At one point in time, all prison gangs and organizations function in Fresno County because Fresno County is very lucrative. As far as the drug trade, it's very lucrative as far as it's a stronghold for the Raza community. There's a lot of Mexican people, a lot of Chicanos, a lot of brown people in Fresno County. They're the majority in Fresno County. And they pose the most threat as far as gang violence. You have brothers, man, doing their thing, Asians doing their thing. And best believe, man, bullets shoot the same, right? So I'm not trying to say that the blacks ain't putting in their work or the Asians ain't putting in their work or the Woods. But at the end of the day, we all know in Fresno County, the Central Valley, that is a Mexican stronghold, and the Mexican gangs pose the most potential threat, not only to each other, but the community as a whole. It's just the way it fucking is. It's the truth and it's facts, right? There's going to be people, oh, man, now my hood is this and my hood is that. Your hood ain't indicted right now. Be happy about that one, right? But it was just time for the Southsiders in Fresno County to be looked at. You know, there's been a lot of gang violence that has happened in Fresno County, and most of it's attributed to the Bulldogs. You know, the Bulldogs being the biggest gang in Fresno County and having county dogs in the city of Fresno and all the different barrios and cliques and hoods, they always get all the attention. But if you've noticed, you haven't seen really a big crackdown on the Bulldogs lately as much as you've seen the Norteños and the Southsiders. And it makes you wonder, like, who's really putting in the work out there. Now, I give a lot of respect to the Bulldogs, and putting in work is putting in work. You know, hurting people, hurting the community, that's attributed to putting in work. I'm using the word attributed a lot today. I learned it, right? So that's just how that is. As far as what's going to happen here, the primary group and gang that was looked at was the Surenos. And now they've been around. I'm going to tell you a couple stories, man. I got a lot of respect and love for Surenos, right? I've met a lot of them. They are laced up. They are one of the original upstater barrios, one of the original that have been putting it down and holding it down for years. And in a county like Fresno, surrounded by Bulldogs and Northerners, right? You would think that they would have been eradicated or eliminated a number of years ago, but that never happened. They were able to get a foothold in Sanger to where they actually are the majority in Sanger. You got the Chancla Bulldogs, which the Chancleros, Barrio Chancla, is an old school neighborhood that used to be comprised of Norteños. When I started first doing time in the Youth Authority, I was locked up with several Chancleros, vatos from Barrio Chancla, right? And they were Norteños. They were not Bulldogs. And then Norteños, they were Norteños, and that's it. Over the years, something happened where the Bulldog movement took over that neighborhood, and the Chancla gang became Bulldogs. They dropped the N, and they no longer represent Norteños. They're just Bulldogs, Chancla Bulldogs. But there was several years that they were Norteños, and that's how they originated. But there was their opposition and their adversary, for the most part, was never Bulldogs, because Bulldogs at that time were not in the city of Sanger. They were there individually, but they didn't have a foothold or a neighborhood in the city of Sanger. It was all Norteños, either the Barrio Chancla or Sanger Surenos and the other cliques that they have there. And they were at war. You know, these Southsiders tend to move in packs. They get deeper and deeper, and they accumulate numbers, and you start seeing them more. I remember in the city of San Jose, you know, back in the days, you can cruise all over San Jose, Story. You could be on the east side, the west side, the south, north, whatever, right? In Meadow Fair, you could be in the Capitol Park area. You could be in the Mob area. You could be in the Horseshoe. All these different hoods, Palmas, and you never seen a Southsider. You never seen Southern graffiti. There was no, I guess you would call, blemish to the city of San Jose. And then eventually, over time, you started to see taggings. You started to notice that Southerners' presence was being felt. Now, Southsiders have always been there, just like every other Northern California. If Southerners are in your city in Northern California, it's because they've been there, right? You just now are seeing them. They are now have accumulated enough numbers and got a foothold into the city where they're now coming out, right? You know that old saying that Norteños used to say, oh, they're always hiding. You don't ever see them. They only come out at night, this, and that. That's untrue. But the basis of that myth is you never seen them. So if they're there, where are they? They must be hiding. They weren't necessarily hiding. They were waiting. They were waiting till the time was right. And now that social media has influenced a lot of youngsters to either be a blood on Paru or a Southsider, they're growing in numbers, and you're starting to see them more. There's nowhere else for them to go. They can't stay in that house. It's bursting, right, at the seams. And, you know, I've always seen the upstate movement. They've represented. They're out there. But now when you cruise through the city of San Jose, they have their own, you know, Barrio Sur 13. You see Vicky's Town. You see these little areas, South Side, I think it's SSP or whatever they have. You could actually tell they're southern neighborhoods, and it's actually all southerners and no northerners. So there is that. So in Fresno County, as they start to accumulate numbers and get deeper, it just there's going to be a lot more drama, a lot more crime, because you're going to have a war. You're going to have a battle between Norteños, Bulldogs, and Southerners. And if the Southerners start accumulating more numbers, this is a violent group. This is a group that, man, their voices are felt. They make sure that wherever they go, you know what it is. So obviously law enforcement has been watching them and feels that the time was now to impact their infrastructure and what they got going on. But it's not going to change nothing, to be honest with you. It's just 69 more people taking off the streets, and youngsters taking off the streets, and a lot of families affected, and of course a community affected. It's what happens, man. You know, I've just been noticing, like I said, a trend that the Southsiders seem to be on the radar lately. And like I said, man, I blame social media. Social media is changing what gang members were to what they are. Okay, back in the days, a lot of the myths that you heard, a lot of stuff was clandestine. And you didn't really get to see like Norteños on camera. They refused to be on camera. The Southsiders didn't talk about their politics. They kept things very quiet. And now with social media, you got actually alleged active gang members that have their own podcasts that are functioning on social media, talking about their rivals and gangs and telling stories and speaking on politics. You know, you literally have a Northern California podcast where it seems like their whole get down is to disrespect Southsiders and to paint that narrative in that picture for Soldados in Northern California, to continue the hate that they've been brought up to hate Southerners. In Southern California, there's an arrogance where they feel the Norteños are not up to par, and they feel that the Northerners can't make it on their own without talking about Southsiders. And the proof is always in the pudding. If you're a Norteño and you believe in the movement and you're doing your thing, to even speak upon the existence of a Southerner or worry about what they got going on proves that you have them in your heart heavy, right? If you're not tripping on what they're doing, and when you see them, you get off where you're mad at, that's the way you're supposed to conduct yourself, with professionalism, and only worry about you and your peoples and not worry about what they're doing in LA or whatever. But that's not how it is on social media anymore. Now it's like give or take. We're going to give you a little fucking a bone. We're going to throw it out there so you take it, and then we can go back and forth. And that gets people buzzing. It's all about clicks and views and people tuning in. But what's happening is these youngsters are starting to notice, man, and say, I don't want to be a part of that. See, there was a myth, a legendary myth back in the days where it was like to be a Norteño or a Southsider was like the ultimate goal, right? To be embraced by a movement that meant something. And nowadays, I won't say it's watered down, but what you're starting to notice is the way individuals are conducting themselves on social media and on them streets is something that a lot of these younger people don't want to be a part of, because there's no shine to it. I told a story the other day, and in the story I told you, I was going to, I just got out of prison, and the younger homies pulled up to my pad, right? And at that time, I was functioning within the regiment in Merced. And so my whole goal was to get rid of any dropouts that were posing a threat to our stronghold, right? Any dropouts that were functioning as Northern Riders or these dropout gangs, or were out there just, you know, wiggling. My whole thing was to catch up with them, right? So I put a little crew together, youngsters, man, and the younger homies at the time. And when I say youngsters, I don't mean kids, just 20s. They were in their 20s. I'm already in my late 30s at the time. They're in their 20s. Anyways, I'm fresh out of prison, indoctrinated in what I'm supposed to do, right? I came out with the weed line, and I knew what it was. And believe you see me now, but my persona and the way I was very much so different than I am on social media, right? And so I put this little crew together. Most of the guys were from my neighborhood, or a few from different neighborhoods, but they were all homeboys, Norteños at the time. And they were going to this club. At the time, it was called Maloney's. I don't know what it's called now. And I had never been to that club. And they were inviting me out. Hey, homie, hey, big homie, you should go to the club. You should go to the club. And so I tried it, and I liked it. right? Having been locked up half of my life, I've never really been to clubs like that. I went to certain places like Fat Cats and Modesto, the Palladium, different spots in Oakland and shit, but I never really hit the club scene like that. So I go, there's a gang of chicks there, motherfuckers are drinking. We're having a good time. We're treated like royalty in this club. My neighborhood was, right? So I loved it. I embraced it. When I started going every weekend, I was like a statue right there, a staple, right? And so one of my older homeboys that had laced me up in the game happens to fall into the club that night. And he tells me something. He says, "Hey, bro, come here. Let me get at you." So what are you doing here? I'm just chilling. He said, "Cause you ain't the type to go to the club." I said, "I know, bro, but I'm feeling this shit. There's a gang of chicks and whoop-de-whoop." He was like, "Hey, bro, we're trophies in the town." And trophies back then didn't mean what it means now. Hood trophies, like people, hey, come kill me, right? It didn't mean that. It meant like we shine. We shine in the town. Like people know us. And the reason it is because we're not out there like that. We're very rarely seen. When we do show up, it's like, whoa, what's he doing here, right? And everybody's like, yeah, the homie. But when you start to go and be out there a lot, then you just become a regular, he told me, right? Don't be regular because we're not regular, homie, right? And that stuck with me. And that's kind of what's happening in the social media right now is people are becoming regulars. It's regular to see Northerners and Southerners on social media now and to see the drama. Back in the days, you never seen that. It was irregular. So when you seen it, it was like, whoa, it was very intriguing. Now it's just regular degular. Now it's just like, whoa, right? And I don't blame myself for being a content creator and ex-Northerner that came on here because I'm telling my stories and doing my thing. But it's dudes that are still actively in the game that are going back and forth, and it's not very professional, right? Anyways, on Operation Hands Down, the primary focus, like I said, is Southsiders in the city of Fresno and Fresno County, and they struck a hard blow. You know, will it affect everything in Fresno? Obviously not, but it's definitely going to affect these gentlemen personally, right? It prevented a school shooting, allegedly, and it took a lot of guys off the streets, and they'll have to reorganize their structure out there. But the beat will go on, most definitely. Let me know what you guys think, man. Did you hear about this Operation Hands Down? It just was conducted yesterday. Some crazy shit, man. You got to read up on it. They seized a lot of guns, a lot of money, over $150,000 in cash, several firearms, as you can see in the video, and a lot. So I'm going to end with this video. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. This video is sponsored by Barrio Liquors in Turlock, California. If you're ever in the Turlock area, pull up to the Barrio and get you something cold to drink.
Operation Hands Down. Multiple federal, state, and local agencies, including Bonta's office, worked together for a takedown day of Surenos gang members. The investigation began 2 months ago and culminated Thursday, with 500 law enforcement officers serving more than 40 search warrants throughout the valley. They arrested 69 people, including 5 juveniles.
We've made our streets safer, our neighborhoods safer, our communities safer, not just in Fresno County, but beyond.
The sheriff's office says it captured nearly all of the people they set out to find. Sheriff John Zanoni sharing more about a crime they believed they stopped.
We were able to intercept and get some information regarding a possible school shooting of an individual that had made some threats and was taking a gun to a school.
He says they seized 73 guns.
As you can see, no serial number here. This is another one that we call an AK-47 style rifle. These are weapons of war.
They also found meth, more than $150,000, and 10 grams of fentanyl.
This 10 grams